Hello and welcome to my channel, iWinToLose Gaming. Galbrena, the fiend of ever-burning flames, has now arrived in Wuthering Waves. In today's ultimate guide video, you'll learn everything you need to know about Galbrena.
By my trigger, enter Hell's Gate!
Scorched to
Painted Hellfire! Flames! Explode!
Galbrena is a powerful fusion main DPS character with an adorable pet chimera named Chimera. Chimera appears to be based on Greek mythology consisting of a lion, a goat, and a serpent. And while Chimera appears menacing, he's actually a good boy, and we should give him an actual name suiting his incredible power and regal appearance, Fluffy. As usual, we'll go through her kit, rotation, echoes and stats, weapons, sequences, teams, a showcase, and finally my opinion on Galbrena at the end of the video. Quick note, this video was filmed on the media server and things may be subject to change upon the official release. Please check the comments below to see if anything changed.
The hunt ends here!
Now, in traditional Wuthering Waves fashion, Galbrena's kit is a chimera-like amalgamation of a thesaurus, an end-user license agreement, and an IKEA manual. Not only did I bite her bullet and read and interpreted her kit, what if I told you that despite all of this, Galbrena might just be one of the simplest characters to just pick up and play, while also having plenty of room for creativity and flexible rotations. Galbrena's goal is quite simple. She starts off in her normal state, where she wants to fill up her blue forte bar. You might notice this little red forte bar on the left, but we don't need to worry about that for now. Just fill up her blue forte bar and then she can enter demon mode, where she does a ton of damage. While in her threshold state, or colloquially known as her normal state, using most of the stuff in her kit will generate blue forte. You can use her basic attacks to generate blue forte very efficiently. You can use her heavy attacks to generate blue forte slightly less efficiently. And most importantly, you can even use her mid-air heavy spinnies to generate blue forte very comically. While in normal state, we can also use her resonance skill, which generates a bit of blue forte, and it puts her in the air, and honestly, most importantly, it's great for overworld exploration. Anyway, after filling up her blue forte, now Galbrena can use her enhanced resonance skill, which will cause her to enter her demon hypostasis state. While in demon state, her aforementioned attacks are enhanced, dealing more damage and now consuming her forte bar. Demon hypostasis state ends once she consumes all her forte bar or after a very long time. Her bread and butter and main go-to attacks while in demon state is her enhanced basic combo. Notably, after her enhanced basic 5, she'll continue the combo string from enhanced basic 3. Her demon enhanced heavies do reasonable damage, but aren't as forte efficient unfortunately. And yes, you can still be a disco ball with her comical mid-air spinnies. While it's not the most efficient in terms of damage, it's the most efficient in terms of humor. Another very important detail is her liberation, which you should use before using her demon enhanced basics, heavies, and spinnies, as her liberation makes her do 85% more damage with her demon mode attacks. So yeah, her liberation is very important. Now let's go through some additional useful details. Galbrena has a unique dash, where she will actually continue her combo string, although it does interrupt whatever attack she's performing at the moment. This means you are not punished for dashing mid-combo, at least if you're not interrupting certain attacks, and can use it to reposition and to dodge counter. Speaking of dodge counter, while in demon mode, she'll immediately go into her enhanced basic 4, making dodge counter less punishing. Now we can just rapid fire through the rest of her kit, with her intro skill generating a bit of forte and leads to either basic 2 or heavy 2, and her outro just keeps things simple by simply doing some damage. As for her passives, hit the enemy with stuff, do more damage, and she's got some inherent stamina recovery in her attacks, which is kind of interesting. And finally, remember that red forte bar I mentioned while she's in her normal state, where you don't need to worry about it until later? Well, later is here, and oh how time flies, so let's talk about it. The red forte is a resource called Afterflame, which Galbrena gains whenever a different named echo is used on her team. It has 40 max points and generates 8 points with each different named echo used, and each different named echo can generate 8 points a single time per rotation. When she enters demon mode based on how many points of red forte you have, she'll do more damage. This might sound a bit complicated, but fortunately you don't really need to worry about it too much. Just remember to use all your team's echoes as you usually would, including Galbrena's echo, before she enters demon mode to improve her damage. Now the next detail you may have noticed is that throughout her kit, it's mentioned here and there that she deals echo type damage as well as some heavy attack damage. The majority of Galbrena's damage type counts as echo type damage, and a decent amount also counts as heavy type damage. In terms of her talent priority, prioritize her forte, then liberation, and then basics if you want to, and finally, lastly, you can level her skill and intro. Fortunately, Galbrena's starting rotation is quite simple. Start off by introing her onto the field and then use her echo. Then just mash basics until you fill up her blue forte bar. Now that she's full of blue forte, enter demon form by pressing resonance skill, and then use her resonance liberation to buff demon form's damage. Then simply mash basics like an Ojue Dorito in the Tower Adversity until you run out of forte. You can even outro animation cancel her final enhanced basic 5. Generally speaking, this is the basis of her rotations, and she's actually quite flexible. And as usual, weave in dashes and dodges when necessary, and since her forte is generated on hit and spent on hit, you'll probably need a few more basics here and there to get the job done. And here's a full team rotation for one of her best teams on her release with Lupa and Brant. You start with Lupa, go to Brant, and end with Galbrena. Overall, I personally find this team to be a bit easier on the rotation side of things in comparison to some teams, and for memorizing what to input for these characters, as Lupa's is fairly simple, because she, well, just largely mashes basic attacks, and Brant's is on the shorter side. Brant's outro also making it so Galbrena can't be swap cancelled during most of her rotation, also makes this team a bit easier to use.
The hunt ends here.
We've made it to Galbrena's echoes, and stats, and she follows the tried and true recent formula. Galbrena enjoys equipping the 3-piece set, Flame Wings Shadow. This thing provides her with 20% crit rate for echo skill damage and heavy attack damage, which Galbrena conveniently naturally alternates between. And it also provides her with 16% fusion damage bonus. For the 2-piece sets, it's the usual suspects, the 2-piece Molten Rift overall being the best option, and with the 2-piece Lingering Tunes being not far behind. For the equipped main Echo slot, you'll want to equip the 3-cost Korosaurus, which provides her with 12% fusion damage and 20% echo skill damage. For the main stats, I'll echo what I usually say in these guides. It's the usual 4-3-3-1-1 setup. For the 4-cost echo for most of her weapons, it'll be crit damage as the main stat. However, for the last dance, crit rate is a reasonable option sometimes. For the 3-cost echoes, it's the usual double fusion main stat setup, with 1 attack percent main stat being fine as always, but 2 attack percents not being recommended. For the 1-cost echoes, attack percent. For Galbrena's energy regen, she typically doesn't need too much, ranging from 13 to 24% depending on her team. For substats priority, it's the usual crit rate and crit damage, followed by attack percent, and try to get enough energy regen rolls. Heavy attack percent is probably the next best option, but keep in mind that the majority of her damage counts as echo damage, so this isn't a top priority. Finally, flat attack isn't useless either. We've made it to Galbrena's weapons, and breaking news, her signature pistols, the Lux and Umbra, is her best option. This thing has crit damage as a substat and provides her with some attack, echo and heavy attack amplification, and a bit of defense ignore. Surprisingly though, her other options are actually reasonable. The usual 5-star stat sticks like the Woodland Aria and the Last Dance are good as expected, but the Strongbox Static Mist is actually pretty solid at around 83% of her signature pistols. You do have to be just a bit mindful of overcrit with this weapon though, so keep that in mind. And breaking the usual trend, she even has a couple usable 4-star pistols with the Relativistic Jet and the Solar Flame, although I recommend some refinements on these things. There are a couple more weapons on this list, but this is already a reasonable selection compared to the usual 4-star and standard 5-star weapon power levels.
The hunt ends here.
Up next, for those that made a fortune off of fidget spinners when they were popular in 2017, we have Galbrena's sequences and investment priority. Galbrena's sequence 1 provides some crit damage based on her red forte meter. This will improve a bit if she has better future teammates who can provide her with additional named echo casts. It also provides a bit of interrupt resistance here and there. Then we have her sequence 2, which improves the attack buff she gains from Burning Drive, improving her damage substantially. Sequence 3 turns her liberation into a nuke, and Sequence 4 provides 20% bonus damage to the entire team. Sequence 5 just makes Sequence 6 more expensive, let's be real, and Sequence 6 does a lot of stuff to really jack up her damage by another 40% or so. Overall, Sequences 2 and 3 are major breakpoints for her, with Sequence 6 being the next big one, but I think she's perfectly fine at Sequence 0. In terms of her sequences versus her signature weapon, overall I personally recommend going for her signature weapon first. Up next we have Galbrena's teams. On Galbrena's release, her best team is with Lupa and Brant. Her being a fusion DPS fits very well with, well, I guess a full fusion team that Lupa enjoys partaking in battle with. Now I do suspect that Cho Yuan will be a great teammate for her, but we'll revisit that point in 3 weeks or so. Then we can swap out some characters here and there, like for example you can swap Brant out for Mortefi. Of course, Shorekeeper works great as well, and if you need a budget option, Verena is fine too. And since mono fusion teams are surprisingly flexible, why not Chongli? Heck, you can even use Yuno, since Yuno buffs heavy attack damage, which she does a reasonable amount of. Now you may think Cantarella is a fantastic teammate with all her named echoes to provide Galbrena with her red forte bar. You can use her, and you're probably best off with Frolova plus Cantarella. Overall, she's got a decent amount of team options with mono fusion, and potentially Cho Yuan in the future, standing out the most to me. Alright, we made to the showcases for Galbrena, starting with the first one, which is overall, I would say, her best team on her release, as well as a team that just feels pretty decent in terms of the flow and the way they work. We have Lupa as well as Brant forming a mono fusion team, and everyone on this team is using S0R1 with their Refinement 1 signature weapons at Sequence 0. And as we can see, all these characters are able to flow quite well together. And we have Lupa as well as Brant using their echoes, as well as, of course, Galbrena using her echo. And we're going to go through one full rotation pretty much for each team before showing you kind of the conclusion of the fight. And I didn't want to actually display the, put side-by-side comparisons for all the clear times for these teams, because this specific fight, it's very, very favorable towards certain elements versus others, so it's almost meaningless because I also showcase a Havoc team, and look what we're fighting, right? We're fighting this bird as well as those Havoc flowers, so I didn't even bother comparing the times in this case. I usually at least, list it, but in this case, there was almost no point. But anyway, we actually have Galbrena on the Static Mist, this time with a more free-to-play, friendlier team with Mortefi as well as Lupa. Now, one issue is that, I guess if you have 2 Static Mists, because in this case Mortefi's also using the Static Mist, something a mild oversight on my part. But yeah, so anyway, the one thing about Galbrena I will say is that she does feel better than most other characters, in my opinion, without her signature weapon. A lot of characters without the signature weapons, they do a lot less damage. But in Galbrena's case, she still does a pretty solid amount of damage. In fact, an interesting little fact is that if you actually have the choice to get Lupa's signature weapon over Galbrena's signature weapon, Lupa's signature weapon actually benefits the team slightly more than Galbrena's signature weapon benefits the team in a full mono fusion type team. But the difference in benefit is pretty small, so you can go with either weapon. Honestly, personally, I'd still pick Galbrena's in that case, because yeah, that way, yeah, I mean, you'll probably use her with Lupa most of the time. Anyway, next is with the Havoc Echo Core with Cantarella as well as Frolova. And I gotta be honest, I always forget these Havoc girls' rotations, and I probably messed this up, but it's probably fine. But regardless, one interesting thing about these characters is that while they do help Galbrena fulfill her full Echo, whatever that red forte bar is called, it fills up her red forte bar. The issue with this team is that when you kind of transfer their outros over to Galbrena, she doesn't benefit from the outro buffs from Cantarella. and you typically want Cantarella after Furlova. So yeah, a bit awkward, but it works pretty well, all things considered. And this team is just for fun. I decided, hey, let's go ahead and try the spinnies. And funnily enough, it didn't actually feel too bad, but I only used partial spinny rotations. I didn't like do the spinnies through the whole thing. One issue I noticed that if you just do only spinnies, you don't actually get enough concerto. So, but if you do, some spinnies, like after one, full basic string, you can go for the spinnies, and look, the enemy can't even hit her, and she's clearing it out. So I think for some defensive utility, it might actually have some use. And then we have the S6R5 Fusion team, and you might be not surprised to see just how ridiculously powerful this team is. I mean, of course, when you put more money into a team like this, it's going to do a lot more damage. So yeah, we've got S6R5 Brand, S6R5 Lupa, and S6R5 Galbrena. I mean, no surprise, even Brant here, well, actually, Brant does a lot of damage at S6R5. So look at that. He clocked out that much damage from the bear with the last tick of his anchor. Pretty crazy. And then now it's going to be Galbrena versus the bird. And just look at this. Wow, one burst, and then the bird's like halfway dead, plus a little bit more, and then a single kick, and then just a couple attacks, and it's over. Overall, Galbrena is shaping up to be a very solid fusion DPS character. Her being comparatively straightforward of a damage dealer with admittingly a fairly simple rotation is a nice benefit for owning her. Now, even the mono fusion team doesn't actually fully synergize with her kit, since none of the fusion characters specialize with casting multiple echoes or buffing echo damage. So Galbrena, while having a great spot with mono fusion, also has additional room to grow with more echo-focused characters in the future. Overall, she's a great fusion DPS, and if that's what you need, then it's hard to go wrong with her. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.